actually 3 clones
Okay.
in the Meteor Vineyard. It's 337, 4, and 7. And 4 and 7 are both California numbers. 4 is a harder, it's a little firmer. It tends to be a little. It's the one that wants to be the ripest to get the tannins really supple. So it's a good backbone kind of structural one. And every now and then we get a ripe year where it really sings. There's quite a bit of flooring actually on the 6 and then the 337 is one of the newer clones. It's one of it's from the French Encov collection that has come into California in the last 10, maybe 15 years. Whenever it was that FPMS kind of opened up the gates a little bit on the importation of plant material.
And 337 is interesting because it's really, really high tone, extreme perfume. It's bright red fruit.
It is the pretty. What you think? Yeah.
But it's the antithesis of what a lot of people expect. They're expecting those base notes, and 337 is it's acid, it's perfume.
Really?
But as a blend.
There's a lot of 337 in California right now, and it's got to do with the replanting after phylloxera, which was when the industry lobbied the university to start letting some of this other plant material in. And so as it came in, people were tearing out vineyards and they were putting it in without really having a lot of track record in California.
Yes. We're here to talk about a new project that is based in Napa Valley. Inaugural release 2005 vintage. And we're really happy to be here sharing the wines. Donnie Dyer, winemaker, partner in the project. Jason Alexander, the general manager for the winery. Just happy to be here sharing the wines.
So I'm going to tell you a little bit about where it is and kind of what propelled us to start this project, because it wasn't something that was obvious from day one. The Schulers, Barry and Tracy, who owned the vineyard and actually planted the vineyard in 1999. They brought in Mike Wolf, who's one of these great, intuitive vineyard managers who's every winemaker's dream to work with, and they had been collectors of Napa Valley wines for quite a while. And when they settled on Napa, one of the things that they, of course, explored was the idea that the property that they bought might be the right place to plant grapes. And they've been lucky in many things in their lives, and this was a time when they got particularly lucky. It's a beautiful, beautiful site in what we refer to as the Coombsville area. It's not a formal AVA, but it's that area just east of the town of Napa. So it's up against the eastern hills. The geology of that area is that Mount George on the eastern hills is volcanic.
Was it the one on fire in June last year? Behind it?
There was a little bit of fire out there, yeah.
That's what we were leaving that day.
It was actually on the other side.
Look, a fire.
On the other side of.
Time to go.
No, put it out.
Yeah, on the other side of Mount George, but it was definitely something that we saw and watched. Yeah. We call 98. We call it 2008. Actually, Barry calls it this the year of fire and ice, because it was like it was either fire or frost. Yeah. We had them both in one year. It was crazy. It was crazy. But at any rate, it's an area that kind of where this volcanic sloughing off of Mount George has formed a lot of the soils, and where Meteor sits is actually a little knoll that's kind of raised up in the valley. So you come off of the slope, it flattens out, and then there's this I can only call it a knoll. We don't really know what formed it, but it's volcanic soil, and the soil is holding together this knoll of cobble. That's a rock also volcanic in origin, but the rocks between like this size and a little bit smaller. But it's deep. It's at 500 feet elevation, still above the valley floor, and that cobble goes down seemingly the extent of the knoll itself. So it's volcanic, a beautiful soil for Cabernet, and its drainage is phenomenal. So that combination of the volcanic soil and the drainage with the cobble and that elevation is pretty magic. It's also, in terms of the climate, it's a little more temperate than much of Napa. It shares the same sort of overall climate, but it tends to be, because it's a little closer to the ocean, the bay, really, it tends to warm up a little earlier in the spring, the soils do, and so we get a nice early bud break and a really long growing season. So it's a little warmer in the spring, and maybe even more important, a little cooler in that August-September period when Napa is susceptible to some pretty extreme heat. And if you hit that wrong in the maturation cycle, it can kind of make or break what your experience is of an entire growing season. And we've now been making a little bit of wine commercially really only since 2005, but we made a little bit of wine in 03 and 04. So since 03 to 08, we've a couple of times felt that there might be a situation when we would have to harvest, our hand would be tied on harvesting, when we would need to bring in fruit early, not because we thought it was perfectly right, but because the sugars were coming up really fast. And it's never happened. I mean, we are at a low, and if that happens to you and you're at 24 bricks, you're pretty much over. But if it happens to you at 21, 22, you right through it. The heat episode goes away, things kind of plump back up, they start ripening again more naturally, and it goes on. And in my experience, once you get past the longest days, and the day length actually starts to taper off, you don't have the capability of getting those kind of heat episodes. And so if you get into October, then your ripening is always going to be a little bit more modulated, and you're going to start to be able to say, the flavors are there, but the sugar's not running away from us, and we can wait.
Yeah. So is that what happened in 08? In your vineyard, is that what happened in 08? Some people around you had to pick?
Well, people in different parts of the valley. I don't know that people immediately around us in Kingsville, but in other parts of the valley, yeah. We had heat in September that was, that pushed sugars in some areas up beyond what was sustainable, beyond what you could really recover from.
So you
and
had
that'll
an extra
happen.
month hang time with the fruit?
We didn't pick until a month later. Yeah.
And that's 08. That's a big difference.
Yeah, it makes a big difference. So to me, that's kind of one of the magic aspects of the spot. That may be a magic aspect of the whole Coombsville area, but you combine that with this volcanic knoll with the great drainage, and it's a pretty natural site. I mean, we
just knew right away.
It had never been planted. It was pastured